This is a Rabble Podcast Network show. New voices in your head. It's Radio Free Radio.
Okay.
Try that one more time.
Take your time, guys. It's cool.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Okay, go for it.
Hey, this is Arms Up.
Arms Up.
Okay, you gotta do it.
Okay, well you jumped it.
Maybe we should just have.
All right. Okay, ready? No. Well, let's all do it. 1, 2, 3. Hey, this is Arms Up. You're listening to the Ruckus on Rabble.ca.
Hi, everybody, and yeah, this is the Ruckus. As Arms Up was just telling you, those guys are from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Great guys, great band. We're going to be talking with them today. Also, we'll be heading off to Toronto to chat with Emar, and we will be heading off to Corner Brook, Newfoundland to visit with Allison Crowe. But first, this month I wanted to bring you a little garage rock. These guys I found on the PodSafe Music Network. They're just excellent. They're called the TVees. And this is a track from them called She's a Hurricane, starting off episode 3 of The Ruckus. And that was the TVees from Vancouver, British Columbia with She's a Hurricane. Excellent track. That just kicks ass. If you'd like to hear more from the TVees, go to their MySpace page. That's myspace.com/the-TVees. That's TheTvees. Our first guest this month is going to be Emar from Toronto. She's an up-and-coming world music artist, and she's really starting to take off, to be honest with you. Her brand new debut album, Sacred Soul, has already sold out at CD Baby. They're printing up more, I think, as I speak, because the demand is so great. She's getting a lot of download action off of iTunes. She's getting media requests from all over the world. I'm very happy that she managed to squeeze me into her incredibly busy schedule. Before we chat with her, though, I want you to hear a track from her brand new album. Again, the album is called Sacred Soul, but this track is called Sutra. about the record. I mean, you've worked with 3 different producers.
Yes.
Now, how did you get involved with these 3 people, and why did you decide to go with different people as opposed to one producer for the record?
I actually love working with more than one person. I've done that in my previous CDs as well. I've worked with at least 2 on a record. This particular CD, I think, even gave me more freedom to work as many producers as I want, because world music, it just feels like it's such a wide genre. So I used a previous producer, Sean Eyre, because I've worked with him before. So I wanted an excuse to go back to Vancouver and visit. So,
that's a good enough reason, yeah.
Yeah. So we did a few songs in a week, and it was great. I mean, that's Sean Eyre. He's a Genie-nominated producer, and we have great chemistry together, and we create very well together. So those were the first songs that I've done, was with him. And then in my networking with people in the music that I was getting into, I was referred to Andrew McPherson of Echo Deck, who lives in Guelph, Ontario. So I contacted him, and he heard my stuff, and he said, yes, I'd love to work with you. So I ended up doing a few songs, 4 songs with him. And his band actually won Canada's best world music band for the Canadian Independent Music Awards last year.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Yeah, so they're doing very well, and they have a new CD coming out this week, actually. I'm going to their release at the Drake this Friday. So yeah, I was very excited to be working with him. So, and then there was the Serbian producer who was more of a film composer, and he understood my Serbian background and is very talented. So I ended up doing 2 songs with him.
Wow, so when you're approaching, I mean, you're going into these various studios with these various people. How do you, how do I say this? How do you make it a cohesive package when you're approaching it from all these kind of different angles?
I think it just comes together because it's still me and my voice. I don't mind if it sounds different, or I don't have that in my mind of thinking of a record like, oh, it has to be cohesive. I think that just happens because I'm the artist on all those songs.
Right, it's all coming from the same place.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually like the fact that different people will bring out different things and have different elements, and I find that exciting.
And I've listened to some samples from your earlier work too, which is definitely more, I guess, folky.
Yeah, like acoustic pop, I guess. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, kind of, what's the evolution for you to start performing as Emar and using this kind of world music vibe that you've got going now? What was the change?
Well, basically, when I started performing on my very first CD, which was the acoustic pop album Embrace Yourself, under my full name, Melissa Rabronia, I found that when I performed live, I was getting feedback from people. They really enjoyed when I sang in another language, and I have 2 songs on my first album where I sing in Serbian. So I kept getting the same feedback, like, wow, that Serbian song that you sang, I didn't know what you were singing about, but oh my God, that was so beautiful. It really touched me. So I started to really zero in on doing the ethnic stuff, and then I said, okay, well, I should write more Serbian songs, and that's where I got the idea, well, I should also do other languages, because I myself was attracted to things that I was hearing. Like I heard Deva Premal's Hindi chant song, which was Tumhare Darshan, and I completely fell in love with it, and I contacted the writers and asked to do my own version. So that's how I started singing Hindi, and I added English and Serbian lyrics. So it was a combination of things that I was hearing that I wanted to do and my own writing.
Interesting. I mean, what other influences, I guess, have you had during the last couple of years as you've been creating these songs?
Well, when I moved back to Toronto from Vancouver, I I reconnected, I guess, with my Serbian background, where I've met a lot of amazing musicians from the Balkans, even not only just Serbia, but like Hungary and all kinds of different, just amazing musicians. This city is full of amazing musicians, and the kind of music that they were doing brought me back into more of my own culture, and that's how I came up with the idea to do. I did the Church Slavonic song. It was actually a CD that a musician friend of mine gave me because his grandmother sings in Bulgarian choirs. So I was listening to that CD, and I came across this one little song, Tebya poem, which is sort of like a little chant, and I fell in love with it, and I wrote my own version of that, and the producer was also Serbian, so he understood that kind of music. And that's how that song came about, and that's actually my most downloaded song on iTunes at the moment. And I think because it's an existing Church Slavonic song that people recognize, but it's the only version that exists out there. So I think a lot of Slavic people are downloading it. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's some good marketing, right?
yeah, for sure. So that was like one of those cool things, yeah.
And that was my conversation with Emar out of Toronto. If you'd like more information or to hear more music or hint hint go buy her CD, go to emarmusic.com. And of course, speaking of .coms, here's a couple I'd like to throw at you. You can go to CanadianRuckus.com. That's our blog for this show. We post up articles and pictures about all the bands we feature and about other ramblings and things like that. Also, if you're still a fan of Canadian music and you like older stuff that maybe you've never heard before, go to our other pet project, itcamefromcanada.com. It has all sorts of long-lost and well-loved Canadian music there too. Our next conversation this episode, we're heading out to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan to chat with Arms Up. These guys are great. I really enjoyed chatting with them. I got to talk with 3 of 4 members as they were in the studio recording their next single. So let's get out to Saskatoon and chat with Arms Up. Do you guys think, so much media, and anybody talks about Canadian music in the last 3 years, they're talking about Broken Social Scene, they're talking about Arcade Fire, they're talking about Toronto and Montreal.
Right.
Where do the other towns fit in? Do you guys feel like you're getting kind of ripped off here? Where's the exposure for you guys?
I don't.
Well, it's interesting that because our EP was called "Not from Montreal," which we thought was very clever, very very clever. We're so clever.
Yeah, we're so clever. Oh,
but no, in a way. But that doesn't, just because there's a town getting a bunch of exposure right now, it doesn't mean there's not other good music out there.
Yeah, and it doesn't really change. Like, I think it's helped. I think if anything, that they've had so much exposure because you can just delete not delete, but like. Maybe quiet down the fact that you're from Saskatoon and just hype up the fact that you're from Canada, and people, international people, they're like, oh, Canada, that's Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver, right? Yeah, that's all there is in Canada, those 3 cities.
Well, we had the Junos here. Was that last year, 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
2 years ago? That was really good. I went out to a lot of shows, and like a lot of local bands performed and stuff. It was really good spotlight on the city musically, and I thought that was really good for the music scene out here as well.
Yeah, it definitely helps. But I don't really feel so much gypped by like Toronto and the East Coasters stealing most of the limelight. I feel gypped by federal cuts that Stephen Harper has made to arts, and that's
grants and stuff,
and that the Saskatchewan government has made to Sask Music, which have been like significant, so much so that we were approved of funding to record a new album, but the money ran out essentially. The cuts came, and they just don't have any money anymore. So that's what I got gypped on.
Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah.
Enough with your politics.
So I guess you're not voting Conservative next time?
Well, I mean, hey man,
Conservative this time.
Yeah, if they increase the funding to arts, I'm all about that, you know. But because like Canada's big, like we were saying, and artists need help, and I think the fact that Arcade Fire, and I've sat on a couple of Factor juries. And when you see the artists that are applying for video grants and for touring, it's like Rain Maida, like from Our Lady Peace is applying for a Factor grant against someone else. So obviously, like, I mean, if he's having a tough time and he's like, I think he's a pretty established Canadian musician.
For sure.
How is anyone else supposed to hack it? And then they make cuts to the program, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
How often are you playing? I mean, are you playing a lot in the city of Saskatoon? Do you tour around Saskatchewan, Alberta very much? Like, what's the deal?
Well, we were playing quite a bit in Saskatoon, and then earlier in the year we did a little tour of Alberta. But it got to the point where we were playing so much. It's like I felt that we kind of like saturated our market here.
Yeah, that happens a lot with local bands, I find.
Yeah.
You play like the main 5 places over and over again, and then it's like, okay, enough.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, I mean, even if the Beatles played like every night, you'd be like, okay, cool for the first like year, and then after year 2, you'd be like, okay, I get it, right?
Yeah. It's always better when you wait a little while, then there's more buzz and more excitement about the show, and it usually ends up being better. But yeah, like, I mean, I could see there's bands here that I could see every weekend.
Yeah.
And you don't because you just saw them last weekend,
Yeah.
You can't expect everyone to come out every weekend too, just financially even.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But as for other touring, we had a summer tour going, but due to like
Money.
was it? Well, unfortunately,
money and time.
Yeah, money. We had to cancel some of those shows.
Canada is such a big. We got a real touring kind of issue, in a way. Like, it's such a big country, and it doesn't make a lot of sense really if you think about how many people live here and how big the country is. You got to travel so far to get to the next city.
Yeah, like the Winnipeg Thunder Bay route. That's always fun.
Yeah, like, and it's grueling, and we feel now at this stage in the band we can almost make a bigger impact if we just focus and concentrate our energy onto like this internet promotion. We can get probably expose ourselves to more fans than we could ever just like playing a few shows in a few small towns or whatever.
Yeah, it's like because gas is going up, as everyone knows, and without when you're going across the country, you need some buzz, or else you're going to be playing to just 20, 30 people out of your show, which is fine, but you really want to make every dollar count out there. When you're spending like $300 to drive from Saskatoon to Regina to Winnipeg, you want the show in Regina to be like spectacular. You want to sell a lot of merch. You want to sell discs off the floor. You want to make connections, and then the one in Winnipeg, you want it to be the same, if not better.
Yeah.
And so right now we're taking the internet route. We're trying a few different things. And we're seeing how it goes. It's going actually fairly well.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, like once you get that buzz going, that's the time to go out on tour. But before that, there's always some benefits to it, but you got to weigh it out. Is it worth all this effort and all this time to maybe play for just a handful of people? Whereas you could probably do that online. And we like to post some live footage and things online as well, so people can kind of get a taste for what we're all about by just sitting at home watching it.
Yeah, the internet has made the whole world so much closer together. At the same time, we still have these huge geographic boundaries that we have to cross in Canada, and it's good, like you get tighter as a band, and you get to know each other in new and exciting ways, which is interesting. But sometimes just financially, at the end of the day, you come home and you're like, $1,000 in the hole, and you start to wonder if you've made the right career choice, and we really love what we're doing, and we really want to make it our career. So we're trying to something novel right now.
Well, yeah, and like there's the music industry is changing in a way too, and these tours aren't, I don't know, like that used to be the old philosophy is well you start a band with a bunch of guys and then you go drive around in a van, smell each other's armpits for like 4 months and then you come home, but I don't think you have to do it that way necessarily anymore, at least in the beginning stages.
So tell me a bit about the Saskatoon scene. I mean, what's it like being a band in Saskatoon? Obviously, it's a smaller center than a lot of Canadians might think of, but what's the music scene like there?
Good.
Yeah, it's growing and it's getting very vibrant, and there's a lot of
new bands and a lot of we've been playing in the scene, in other bands and all sorts of stuff for quite a while, and it's interesting to notice how like bands come and go, but a lot of the musicians and the artists stay the same. They just kind of switch to a new group, and so it's almost like a bit I don't know.
It's very incestuous.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that.
It's very incestuous. There's a lot of there's not a lot of bands, but there's there isn't for our city. There's a lot of bands.
There's quite a few bands,
and there's a lot of there's a really good obviously really good jazz scene and blues scene. It's always been here. The punk rock and thrash scene is pretty. I thought it was
huge.
There's
always a show on.
Yeah. But as for kind of more middle of the road, like indie rock and roll, that sort of stuff, there's a few really great bands. There's our friends, the
Sheepdogs.
The Sheepdogs are our friends.
Yeah.
They're a good band. Volcanoes in Canada, they're another really good band.
Rebellion.
The Rebellion, that's another great one. Bloodlines. There's
lots.
Yeah, there's a lot, and we all seem to get along, at least.
And there's people in the city like to go out and listen to music and have a pint. That's what they like to do. So the clubs are always pretty full. You go out, you can always find a good band on the weekend to go listen to. So there's always that, and it's really encouraging because that's what I like to do: go listen to music. And it's encouraging that other people want to do that too, especially for musicians.
Yeah. So it's definitely a good scene. Overall, a good scene and vibrant. Yes.
Well said. And that was Barry Romberg with the Dermans. Now, if you're into cool jazz, you're going to love Barry Romberg. Actually, that was the Barry Romberg Random Access Large Ensemble. And they actually released a new CD this year called Existential Detective. If you liked that, and if you're into cool jazz and you happen to be in Toronto, these guys have a couple of really cool gigs coming up. On October 26th, 2008, they will be at The Rex, and on November 8th, 2008, they're going to be playing at Humber College. So check out barryromberg.com for more information there. Actually, we're going to be speaking with Barry next time on the Ruckus. Actually, I've been promising to get him on the show for a couple of months now, so I promised I'd throw one of his songs on here. But yeah, we'll talk to him next time. Before that was Arms Up and Time to Change. Excellent guys out of Saskatoon. I really enjoyed chatting with them, and I wish them all the best. Our next and last guest, this time on the Ruckus, we're going to Corner Brook, Newfoundland, and we're going to speak with Allison Crowe. Now, she actually grew up in Nanaimo, BC, and her family's still out there, and she does spends a lot of time traveling back and forth, but she also spends a lot of time touring around Europe and playing a lot of different festivals. One of the first things I wanted to ask her about, though, she seems to have a real connection with the Fab Four, so that's where I started my conversation with Allison Crowe. So what is it about Allison Crowe and the Beatles? I mean, you're playing in Liverpool for Beatles Days or whatever it was called.
Yeah, was it called the Beatles Days? I thought it was the Matthew Street Festival or something.
I was just reading an article about it from the Liverpool newspaper, and it mentioned something about something Beatlish that you were doing in August. So I guess that's the same thing.
Yeah, it is. I don't know why. It probably was called the Beatle Days and Matthew Street Festival and stuff, so it's probably all the same thing, but it was basically a big Beatles celebration and also like just bands playing everywhere. It was really cool, just like a giant festival.
Yeah. So,
yeah, and I don't know, I guess I do a few Beatles songs, and I was asked when I was in Halifax, I guess, what was that, 2006, I think? I was on tour in Halifax, and I stopped by a Beatles fest that was going on there, and I was allowed to play a few songs. A lady, Faye, that was helping us set everything up was actually a part of that festival, so she said, well, you do Beatles songs, come by, play a few. And so I did, and yeah, that kind of led into the Durness Festival the next year, which led to me having a talk with Julia Baird, who's John Lennon's sister, and she invited me out to this Liverpool one this year. So it's kind of a bunch of different events leading up to different stuff.
Speaking of Ani DeFranco, I don't want to try and compare you or anything like that, but similarities in that you do have your own label, and you started this all by yourself.
Yep.
Well, I'll make the question easy for me. Why? Why'd you do it that way?
Well, because of people like Ani DeFranco.
Well, good enough.
Yeah, totally. Because I looked at her and I was like, well, that's amazing. I sort of look up to her and how she did that, and just the fact that, yeah, you can, right? Like, if you work hard enough, I think there's, I think she has a quote that's, if you're terribly diligent and disgustingly sincere, right, you can kind of pull it off. But and I think also you have to be a little bit crazy to do it in this way, probably. But I'm the kind of person, like, I'm pretty stubborn about, I want to write what I want to write. I want to say what I want to say. I want to sing what I want to sing, right? Right down to recording myself. I want to sound like how I want to sound like. And I just like the idea that you can do it that way, and you don't have to do stuff that you don't necessarily want to do. Like, I think people get that idea that that's the only way you can do anything. And I think that's kind of sad, because in the end, like, I'd rather feel good about what I'm doing, whether that's like crazy hard work and nobody comes to the show, rather than be singing for 100 million people and hate every second of it.
because really, like, with writing and with art and stuff, like, it's just, I don't know, it has to be real or else I don't care about it, I guess, you know? So
I appreciate that very healthy attitude. It's very much the DIY ethic.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, and from doing, I mean, I have sort of been courted by this label once, and I went through this whole experience, and you know, never ended up signing anything because it was insane, right? Like, a lot of the stuff that goes on is just like, what?
like what? What was going on?
Just, I mean, you just kind of understand that it really has little or nothing to do with music. You know, I went through this whole process where it was supposed to be about artist development and yada, 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 and it turns out it's not really about that. It's about, you know, making the hit and selling the however many millions of CDs and, you know, just I don't know. It's just not about what I want it to be about, I guess.
Also on Little Light here, a couple of the tracks, Angels and your cover Time After Time, were recorded live.
Right, that wasn't by me, actually. That was, actually, there's a few live tracks on there, Disease as well.
Oh, that's right, too, from White Rock, BC. I'm looking at the back of the album right now.
Yeah, so that, my friend Scott recorded, I believe, Time After Time and Angels, and my friend Larry, who owns Turtle Studios in White Rock, recorded that at the sort of 10, was it 10 or at a anniversary anyways for the studio, so that's kind of how those came about too. I really like live stuff. Like, I don't really like really produced music. Like, I don't like to listen to it. I don't like to make it. Like, I like it the more live and raw that it sounds, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, it just struck me as interesting that some of them were obviously studio, but even those sounded really live. They didn't sound like, you know, they'd been manipulated or overproduced at all. So it is very much a raw recording. Yeah,
and a lot of the times, you know, I'll use first take, you know, because that's I really hate recording in the studio.
That's awesome. You're like the opposite of Axl Rose, right?
No, I can't. I just know, just from doing it, that on take 150 you've sort of lost a bit of your edge, right? Like, it's like, and a lot of the times, like, I've recorded friends and stuff before, or a friend of mine in particular, like, a lot of the times you get the best take that first time, right? Because that's where all the energy is. That's like ready to go, and that's almost like a live concert would be, you know? So if you're doing it with the knowledge that you can come back and fix it, you're not going to have as much energy. It's kind of interesting, but I just prefer it that way anyways. It's what I like.
Well, that's a different perspective than a lot of people I talk to. They, you know, really want to go in there and record and re-record or whatever. So that's kind of cool that you really want to do it, you know, like a live show. Yeah,
really, I can't stand going over and over and over stuff. Like, I would actually go insane. Just the finished product, I just don't like as much, so.
It took the edge off. At least that's what I thought at the time, but my mouth was open and these words kept pouring out and out. My head is empty and I wish it was just empty threatening, 'cause all my angels seem to disappear and leave me lonely singing. And it's been so long since I felt not a victim of repression. So maybe I overdo, but take who this is or let me be. 'Cause all the angels in the world couldn't hold a candle to me, and no one will ever love you like I do. My fire is inside and the door is open, so let it slide and I'll just be who I am, and you just be a man and I'll still love you anyway. most of the time, so don't let that bother you. And I learned to fight last time, so I know how to do what I have to do. Though I am painfully fragile, I'll do my best not to let anyone see. And deathly cold sometimes, it's easier to shut up than feel anything. But it's been so long since I've felt not a victim of reparation. So maybe I overdo, but take who this is or let me be. 'Cause all the angels in the world couldn't hold a candle to me. And no one will ever love you like I do. My fire is inside, the door is open, so let it slide, and I'll just be who I am. You just be a man, and I'll still love you anyways. Even though you're a man, I'll love you anyway. Even when I don't understand.
And from her latest CD, Little Light, that was Allison Crowe and a live version of Angels. Now, if you're an Allison Crowe fan, and she's got a lot of them because she tours all over Europe all the time and across Canada all the time, check out Mojo Magazine in the next couple months. They are going to be having a tribute to Leonard Cohen, and on the accompanying CD, Allison's going to be covering Joan of Arc. So, check it out, pick it up, and go to AllisonCrowe.com to buy more of her music. She's great. All of her albums are just stellar. That's it for this episode. I want to thank you all for listening, and next time it's going to be a little different. On the Ruckus, I'm going to have two new correspondents doing interviews on the next episode. So stay tuned for that in the end of November. Thank you so much for listening, though, to this episode, and make sure you check out CanadianRuckus.com. That's where we blog about all the bands we feature on the show and various and sundry other ramblings, so check it out. Also, because we are a member of the Rabble family, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Rabble TV. There's a great feature on there called Indie Inside. Every 2 weeks they put up a new music video by an independent Canadian band that you've probably never heard of before. So check out tv.rabble.ca. Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next time.